Hello, everyone, and thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Art Hu, Lenovo's global CIO and CTO of our Solutions and Services Group. I wanted to talk today about transformation, but a different angle, one that's not often spoken about as much, specifically around the value of communication. Digital transformation has been a major priority for business leaders around the world over multiple years now. They're looking for new ways to optimize operations and add value for their partners and customers. Now, at Lenovo, we're intimately familiar with the journey, having made the company level decision to evolve from a hardware centric company to a full services technology solutions provider several years ago. Now, as you can imagine, this entailed an enterprise transformation, touching every part of the business. Today, our investment is bearing fruit, and Lenovo is delivering solutions and services to customers worldwide. We've collected many lessons and best practices along the way because we're definitely not perfect. And one of our key learnings was that effective communications really can make or break a transformation. Now, this shouldn't come as a surprise, as I think it's true for almost any IT project. Study after study has found many IT programs that fail do so not because of technical feasibility or technology barriers, but because poor change management and communication. Even knowing that, this is still an undervalued and under-discussed topic. So today, I want to speak about the factors that make communication successful, as well as some of the pitfalls to avoid. So let's start by looking at why communications is still overlooked in large, complex technology projects. One main reason is that both business leaders and IT leaders sometimes view communications as inherently on the soft skills side. It's non-technical. Put another way, people naturally think, well, it's an IT project, so technology rules. Technology should drive, right? I believe this perspective is indicative of a larger issue, which is focusing on the technology instead of the business. We need to flip the script to the end user to show how it is that technology enables the business goal. Now, at Lenovo, the way we do this is drive our projects and services through an approach of delivering outcome based solutions. And with this approach, what matters most is the outcome we're going after. The clearer the vision of that outcome, the better a project can deliver. And that requires, you guessed it, effective communication from the very outset. I'll speak in a minute about what that looks like. But before I do, let's look at where else effective communication plays a role in the digital transformation undertaking. So let me step back and ask you as an audience, what do you think is the next stage where communications need to be front and center? Is it at key milestones? Is it when we need to make a presentation to the business sponsor? Is it when we need to train users? Or how about when we hit a roadblock and the project gets delayed? Maybe it's when the project goes over budget. Well, it's a bit of a trick question. And I can think you can all guess. The answer is all of the above. Communication needs to be built into every part of a project. From the beginning, when the shared goals are agreed upon, at regular intervals throughout the project timeline, anytime there's a change in scope, budget, or schedule, upon delivering a go live, and even after the go live, after the technical end of a project, communications should continue because transformation doesn't stop. And teams need to be measuring user adoption, responding to the feedback, and continuously improving the solution. So, conversely, not prioritizing communication during the digital transformation can result in misaligned goals, wasted time and resources, unmet expectations. And it's so important that people and the business may still perceive your transformation to be underperforming if you're even when your metrics are met if you're not communicating well. Now, I remember an example where the daily users of our system, in this case pricers within Lenovo, they were actually benefiting significantly in efficiency from upgrades and the ability to quote to our customers. But because we weren't communicating well to the leaders of those teams, the executive team actually continued to give us low marks because we hadn't really elevated the visibility and made it clear what we were communicating. So that puts a lot of importance on communicating as the part of a CIO role. This brings me to my next point. Today's CIO role has a much broader remit than even a few years ago. Many CIOs are now active decision makers in areas well outside the traditional boundaries of IT. They're more involved in contributing to the corporate strategy. They might weigh in on sustainability initiatives. They also are expected to drive changes to the organization's core business model. All of this underscores how communication is a critical skill for today's CIO. CIOs should be creating connections among many parts of an organization, acting as that critical hub. Why is that? In fact, as all parts of a company are becoming increasingly connected to each other via technology, I would make the case that being this hub is a natural role for the CIO, who can bring a uniquely integrated perspective to the C-suite that comes from looking across the traditional silos and boundaries of the business. Now, this role of hub or bridge builder becomes particularly evident during a digital transformation. There are more stakeholders to align, there are internal partners to bring on board, and there's end users that really span the entire spectrum of roles within the company. And you don't know what you don't know at the start of complex transformations. Strong communications are an excellent way to hedge against this risk of the unknown unknown. It'll help you navigate this space and more quickly allow you to reduce your blind spots as you engage and as you navigate the transformation journey. So, what does effective communication from the CIO look like, particularly during a digital transformation effort? As I mentioned earlier, at Lenovo, my team and I have been on the transformation journey for multiple years. And along the way, I've identified some rules of the road for effective communication that I believe are key to success. Let me go through a few of these with you now. The first one is listening more than you speak. One of the first things I did when I started in my CIO role at Lenovo was to go on a listening tour. I met with the business group leaders, key executive stakeholders, as well as our executive committee. I actively listened to understand their long-term goals, where they thought we were succeeding, and what was keeping them up at night. Now, I certainly had my own ideas of what it is to do, but taking the time to hear their feedback helped me understand their priorities and really was an important factor into my longer term planning for the roadmap. It also helped establish a solid foundation for longer term relationships, and that's trust. Spending more time listening also created opportunities to identify the potential pitfalls or resistance to programs within the transformation. It helped me identify leaders who would be on the vanguard of the transformation, out there leading bold changes with me. And at the same time, I could also tell who would need a little bit more of that encouragement and convincing before they would really come along the journey. The next point is to understand the strengths of your team and those with whom you are working, because every team offers unique abilities and expectations. Every team does. No two teams are going to be the same. Now, when you do this, some teams may be facing obvious challenges, such as being understaffed or even underskilled. You may want to uncover as much as you can without bringing any judgment. You should reserve your judgment and check that at the door. Because the goal is not to grade a team at the beginning. Oh, this team is going to succeed. This team is going to be a laggard. But it's about figuring out the best way to bring everybody with you and to deliver what it is they need to engage. And so when you're preparing to partner with business teams, try to interact with team members at all levels, especially the key influencers, to better understand their strengths and preferred communication styles. Remember, in addition to the formal networks, you really want to do this to tap into the more informal networks of influence that exist in all of our organizations. The same is true for your own team. What's the best way for you to foster communication with them and among them? Some people respond better to direct task-based instructions in a very direct, guiding way. Others may need to be led and be provided the context for them to pick up and digest. As leaders, it's our responsibility to ensure that our teams can perform effectively, and understanding their strengths and weaknesses helps us do that. The third thing is about establishing clear goals at the outset. Every digital transformation, regardless of size, should have clear goals and benchmarks to measure progress. What is the North Star, and how do we know we're taking steps towards getting there? And this should be one of the first steps to deployment. Not surprisingly, unclear goals can be a major reason why digital transformation projects fail. But establishing those goals will be futile unless you communicate them clearly, early, and often to the affected stakeholders. This is not a fire and forget exercise. You can't just do it one way. It's not a one-way announcement. Effective communication is really a dialogue. It's a two-way. And you have to own the responsibility for getting feedback and ensuring your messages have landed. And that brings me to the next point. It's why you have to build in opportunities for questions and feedback. You may think you've clearly communicated your point. Let's call that A. But your stakeholder, they have their own mental model and they have their own worldview. So when they're listening and it makes it through that worldview, that person might have understood what you said and you thought you said A as B, maybe even Z. So as a quick check-in, you can use things such as, what would that look like for your team? Or how does that align with business goals for the quarter? This can often help understand any gaps in understanding and ensure that you get a true shared view. And the key on feedback really is, again, use it to triangulate whether or not you are connecting with your stakeholders. This is not about how frequently and how well you think you've said it or how many times you've said it. It's about whether you can lead your business to that aha moment so that they can truly internalize what's the core point of the change and bring that to their teams in a compelling way. You want the light bulb going off for them. You want their eyes to light up because they've got that same flash of insight, and that will animate them going forward. Then it's important to demonstrate value early and often. Teams and leaders, as we said, they run the gamut. There are going to be those who embrace it actively, but there's going to be skeptics. And especially for these skeptics, demonstrating value early on and then frequently as possible becomes paramount. Showing quick wins, especially those that can be quantified, can turn skeptics into supporters. What's important to recognize here, and one of our lessons learned, is that these quick wins, they don't need to be perfect. What people are looking for is not perfection, but they're looking for proof that it's possible, that we can get started, that the path to meaningful change is there. And that by itself can start the momentum rolling for being more successful. Even those who are advocates, even if you're out on the front and you're advocating the transformation, they're going to get benefits. They're going to get even more excited about measurable wins and reinforce their support for the project while keeping them engaged. Finally, speaking in the language of your stakeholders. And by that, I mean, it's critical to recognize there are many people who are not immersed in the day in and day out details of the project, with all the acronyms, with the Gantt charts, with the context that comes from 2 to 3 years of immersion. So you need to use direct and simple language in terms they understand. Let me give you an example from my experience where we didn't do so well initially. When my team first started on standardizing common data definitions, our team got very excited. We told the business, look at our amazing new cloud-based data lakehouse architecture. It's going to add great functions on the data ingestion pipeline. It'll do all these neat things on processing. And we just started talking. And I could tell afterwards the business was totally lost. They didn't understand at all why this was important. What was missing? We were speaking the language of people who were thinking about this 24/7 by 365. So we tried again, this time putting it into business terms. And we said, look, ultimately, your first line order management users will be able to make the same day remediation of emerging problems due to faster data update speeds. Okay, that's exciting because that's something that's going to solve a problem for them. So just a short illustration of making sure when you engage with target groups, you use language that lets them and gives them that on-ramp to engage. So in wrapping up, the ultimate goal of any digital transformation is to enable an organization to leverage the power of digital technology to achieve goals more effectively and efficiently, and to open up new paths to success, new engines of growth for the company. Making sure communication plays an integral role in your transformation empowers teams for better and faster decisions. It increases the business engagement, and it raises the probability of achieving that transformation success together. Thank you very much.